I choose my colors. You know, that's why I choose share. Mashed potatoes or shrimp. It's the same. I get choice. Yeah.
We used to go there.
Oh, yeah.
Bye, Ross.
Hi, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you.
I think that's what we were saying.
Is that the sound?
She went to the.
Okay.
Dan, you sure you have no more and no requests for IT?
Good shape.
Okay, it's your last chance to tell me.
Everything's good. Hey, how are you? You too.
Can any of you hear us online? Do a thumbs up if you can hear us. Oh, they can hear us. Yeah, good. You just need to do that. I just have special captions. That is what I already told you. This last year.
So
I think that. All right, get this meeting started. Thank you to all of you who are here in person and online. I'm looking forward to this discussion today. So first of all, we are excusing Yvonne Hanson, but we have Tricia filling in for us. Is that right? On Zoom. Oh, thank you for coming. And Russ Gall, I see, is also a guest joining us here. So make a motion to approve the minutes from October 21st, 2023. You should have them in your notes there. Are there any changes or comments? All right, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Any opposed? All right, it passes. That was a tough one. All right, year-to-date updates. So this is the first time we've done this, and you have handouts that have the green highlights. And wondering what should we add or change? I just think at the beginning of every meeting, this is really helpful for us to see where we're at. I think one thing I would like to add here is how many available seats there are for each of those programs, so that we know what growth could be, or if they are maxed out. And if they are maxed out, what is your request for me to be able to expand that? So I'd like to add those two things in the future. So Jared, do you want each of them to report quickly, or what do you recommend?
Maybe if you want to call out the things that you thought were highlights, we didn't get a report from Salt Lake Community College, so you might have just a quick how much what their enrollment is. You'd like to call it.
For sure. Yeah, things are going well with our program. We are
Probably speak up.
Thank you. Things are going well with Salt Lake Community College. We have our graduation coming up next month on the 13th. We've talked about this, all are invited. We recently conducted summer registration, and we're about ready to get that underway. Chris, our academic advisor and academic coordinator for the program, would you like to then talk about the specific number?
Sure. So we have 298 active students for the spring semester. That's the current semester we're in right now. That's wrapping up. Of those, there were 2,228 total attempted credit hours this semester. We are looking at 32 graduates with associate degrees in anthropology, criminal justice, and general studies at our graduation on May 13th. And 3 graduates with a general education certificate. The top 3 most popular courses, which was asked, are natural disasters, professional sales, and the theory and practice of meditation. One of the biggest triumphs we've had this year has been SLCC invested almost $200,000 into purchasing laptops for students and providing modern software for students to use in class. These are expected to be deployed in fall 2024. And what is the largest graduation in the history of the program, even the previous iterations of the program. Biggest challenges have been just streamlining the process around students transferring credit from other colleges. A lot of students took some college from other universities and state colleges while at different times in their lives, and a lot of them lack the ability to get those credits transferred over via transcripts from these institutions because so many colleges have moved to online transcript requests. And they cost money too. And these students may not have the money or the funds to get those transcripts. They also may not have anyone on the outside that they can sign a FERPA release form to allow them to get this information for them transferred over to Davis Tech or Salt Lake Community College. And it's a real struggle for students. And that's been a major challenge that I've noticed, and so has David. Another one is because of how much the program has grown. I'm going to be honest, I think we need more staff for SLCC.
Sure. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the great job you're doing. Thanks for sharing.
I think that is what you mentioned about the transfer credits is crucial because we're working on that right now of applying for these institutions. You have to have all that transfer credit. So any solution, recommendation? Can you help?
Really good. It was awesome.
Can you
Absolutely.
Nate, you're on live mic.
I was only here for 1 year, so I've got to go back to Utah Tech. But
Oh.
Can you help with any of that?
Transfer.
Information or wait fees or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's all on the realm of the worker. We're transcripts are generally handled by the clearinghouse. So I think it's pretty well out of Lucian's hands, right? There's a $3 charge for the transcripts go between institutions. Davis Tech, we just absorb that cost as we send things to Salt Lake University of Utah.
It is certainly a challenge it's certainly a challenge to transfer back and forth the credit information, for example, our 2 institutions, and yet we've been able to accomplish that successfully. And we have such an exciting working relationship now with the UU as they are moving forward. I think, in other words, it's not as large a concern when it comes to interstate institutions because of our working relationship. But once we extend beyond that, I don't know what you should do. And it is a challenge. And I wish I had a solution. If I had, you would have implemented a long time ago.
Is it different from the challenges of the institution that large has, or?
Yes.
Probably have
Yes.
more issues with documentation.
Yes, absolutely, because the students are not able to conduct, they're not easily able to conduct those affairs on their own. So one of the things that we do as a prison education program is that we serve as the liaison between students and college, and often between students and the Department of Corrections. So we fulfill that role because they're unable to do that. It's in some things they just simply cannot do, and other things like the request of transcripts, they can, but as Dr. Bradbury mentioned, there are a lot of challenges that they face in terms of financial challenges and contacting the institutions, turning the legal rights over to family members or friends on the outside so that they do not violate the.
I think UDC, Brian, would you like to comment on that?
Yes, thank you. So what we were discussing is UDC right now does something similar that might help in requesting high school records. We have office staff who are assigned essentially to request high school transcript or diplomas for individuals as they come into the institution. Our case managers, one of the first questions they ask them is, do you have a high school diploma? And if we don't have documentation of that already in no track, we were requesting either those transcript or those diplomas from in-state or out-of-state institutions. UDC absorbs the cost of that. And we could potentially do something similar for post-secondary education as well. It sounds like maybe intrastate is a concern, but for out-of-state, there's a possibility UDC could do something similar, where if we know an individual has out-of-state credits, it flags one of our personnel, and then we can help track those down.
Okay, well, we'll keep working on that. All right, 60-second summary from the Davis Tech.
60 seconds.
Yes. Look at the agenda.
You can read them. We're
Yeah.
very proud.
Hey.
I apologize, I'm having some computer
Bill.
issues, but off the top of my head, I can tell you we have 275 enrollments. Year to date, we graduated 75
Have a good
students.
summer.
We are completely full. Every seat is taken currently with a waiting list for every program. Top programs: welding, graphic design, culinary arts, business, CNC machining. We extended an offer to an individual yesterday. She accepted today for our advisor position. So that will be filled shortly next month. We're good, like I said earlier.
Okay, so you need more space.
We absolutely need more space, and Brian and Maria and I are talking about what expansion and increased capacity looks like.
So if somebody is in one of these programs, you say semester credit hours not available, but wouldn't it transfer to a tech college?
Absolutely, and
That's what I want. I'd like to see that in there next.
Lance will speak a little bit to what we have in the works there. Jared, I think we had.
Not available, it's just. You're not doing semesters.
Correct.
So
So
what-
the implement seating, because we work on an open entry, open exit.
So whatever transfer or, upon exiting, what it would calculate for that.
Yes. And we are transferring to other institutions. We've been trying to work with Salt Lake Community College. Again, Lance will speak a little bit. Something that we have in place that's really help us.
We are seeing success with transfer from Davis Tech.
And are you able, I made the change with HB 194 2 years ago, but are you able to have them opt in to having your institutions contact you or contact them when they exit so that you can help them continue to apply for scholarships and register for classes? Is that happening?
It is. We've seen a modest percentage increase in what students are doing when they do leave, especially when they don't finish.
But you
Given
have
a
that
little
contact.
more time, I can certainly get you that information,
Okay.
but we are starting to see it. Part of our reentry component that we've decided as a collective group that we're going to focus on is ensuring that FAFSA is filled out prior to release. That identifies all the institutions that offer education within the prison, so that's waiting for them.
I think that's a great statistic for us to start tracking, because I don't think it's really been tracked in the past. So, to keep that in mind. All right, do we have somebody from Stowe College?
Michael Austin.
Michael,
And Bob
give us your
Levy.
summary.
And Jay Olson, top right.
Get a 60-second.
Hello, thank you. We have we also have Jay Olson and we have Mike Lee here. So Snow College is in the midst of approving our prison education program. We have it has been approved by the CDC or by the UDC. We have just finalized our MOU. I am right now knee deep in writing the report to the Northwest Commission. What we will be doing, we are already offering several non-credit programs at the Central Utah Correctional Facility in Gunnison. We will be offering a full associate degree in general education. And we will be also offering Jay one more technical program.
That's correct. Yes, we've got construction management there, construction technology that follows and mirrors what we have. So it is a certificate. We're offering culinary arts. It's not a certificate, but it is there. And we will add, planning this fall, industrial automation, the full program of industrial automation or automation technology, industrial mechanics.
So we're on track to submit the request for substantive change to the Northwest Commission by Friday of this week, and then we will wait to hear from them before we file our report with the Department of Education. Mike, you want to add anything? Okay, we'll take that as a no. Any questions? We will be-
Yeah, I'll just say thank you so much for doing this, and I think you're such an important part of where the expansion can take place. And so if you can connect with maybe David Bacavoy here from Salt Lake Community College and Dan Powers of how they're working with online or other ways of doing education where you don't have to have the physical equipment and specialized equipment to have other offerings. I think that's the way to move into really helping that central facility to be effective for more education. All
Very
right.
much so.
Yes. All right. Do we have someone from UB Tech?
I think I saw Tim on there.
Right here, thank you.
Great.
Big triumphs, I guess. We've had a big year this year in terms of graduates. We were on track until recently to have 37 graduates this year, which would have been a stellar year for us and for the inmates. Since COVID has happened and the cost of materials going up so high, it's been hard for us to build self-help homes or just county government homes just due to those costs. We haven't been able to do that for several years now, but we're just completing now one, and we have another one lined up. And so for us, that's a huge triumph in a residential construction program. To not have the home to build is rough. We have also for self-help homes completed 11 full sets of kitchen cabinets. And in terms of biggest challenges, just maintaining students, not having a huge turnover and seeing them all the way through the program so that they are prepared to really pitch in and help when we need them, as opposed to something happening and we start over teaching again.
Thank you for that. I think my question would be, with you being over inside the Duchesne County Jail, I hope that the work we're doing is to help students continue their education programs if they get transferred to you or from where you are. So do you have any update of how that transferability and what options may be for inmates who come to your facility?
Oh, sorry, I muted myself. I don't know what the options are for someone to come to us. I know that they have to be within 3 years of leaving the prison system to come down to us. Beyond that, I know there's a waiting list right now, but how somebody gets on that list, I'm actually not sure how that works.
I think I'm referring to UDC is getting better at looking at what programs and educational offerings that inmates are in. But for their contract with you to have inmates be down in your location, we just want to make sure that if there's some online courses that they were doing, that they could complete that and keep working on it. Or if they work under construction down there, how will that transfer to the main facility or to central corrections? I'm talking more about transfer of information and opportunity. So I think it'd be good to continue working on that. And again, we don't need to reinvent the wheel on a lot of these things. You can coordinate with some of the strategies that are happening at the main prison, and working with Brian to figure that out. I think that would be really important. So thank you, and Maria. All right, we have the University of Utah and BYU.
Great. I guess we also have 60 seconds, so I'll be
Go
real
for it.
quick. We are thrilled that we had our first cohort of students apply to the University of Utah, working for the bachelor's degree. 15 students have applied. We've heard back from the admissions office. 11 of the 15 have been accepted. All that have been reviewed have been accepted. Huge team effort there across institutions. Want to point out Salt Lake Community College for helping us figure out transcripts, which on our end was there as well. Daisy Gomez, our educational manager, did a terrific job tracking down for only 15 students. I can't imagine with nearly 300 with those challenges, but with 15 students across, with folks across the country, they're getting transcripts was a big challenge, but we figured it out. Davis Tech let us use their computer lab to actually do the application online, so really appreciative of them. Of course, our friends in UDC just being supported throughout the entire process. In addition to the BA program, we had 25 students enrolled in continuing education classes through BYU. Chris Hodson, as well as 2 other of his colleagues, taught classes with our program this year. We're also developing a tutoring program, tutoring and mentorship program in collaboration with Brian and his team, trying to figure out how the 15 students who are enrolled in the BA program can make a lasting impact on the educational culture of the compound. So seeing how those students can support tutoring, mentorship for Davis Tech students, for Salt Lake Community College students where that makes sense. And we'll have the reading clinic on campus supporting that effort. I think that is, but we're rolling. I'm really excited about the start of our BA program. So
That's awesome. So I think it would be interesting for us to get a statistic maybe from you of how many already have some college credit, or if they're starting from scratch. I think that's of interest, at least for me. So in general, what I'm seeing are 2 things. One of them is the main facility is looking for more space, as well as I think there's a couple more that are looking for more capacity, like Snow College. And so I would love for you to address these opportunities, is what I'm going to put them. Of if you could come next time in the report with your proposal of what you may need, either physical space, virtual space, whatever it is. I'd love to see those suggestions. And then the second thing that I'm seeing is really the need for looking how to expand in our other facilities, both the central and jail and other locations, of using other offerings instead of needing so much physical space. That how can you continue or start someone's education and then they can get transferred to finish that. So I think that's a technology. I'm gonna have Maria and Brian, maybe next time can you report on that? I know that you're in the process of really working on some things, but I think that accessibility across physical locations is of great interest. So thank you, everybody. All right, Jared, would you give us a council recap and updates with the report?
Yeah. Let's see if I can operate the technology. I'll just prompts up here. Share. Slideshow. Okay, there we go. Okay, so just to recap, most of you have been along with this, right? So we can rather quickly go through where we're going today. Just a reminder of the objective of our council that we developed last year. We're focusing on actions, recommendations, what can we do or just continue doing with higher education, completion that will help sustainable employment, successful integration. That's kind of a reminder of what we're about. So we completed our report last year, and in that report, we included recommendations that you as the council had for the Board of Higher Education, Department of Corrections. You'll see that the first four are the same for both. And we had a couple of special ones because they're special for corrections. I will note that the report was sent to usually for the Board of Higher Education and to the Executive Director of Corrections. We had responses from both. Director Red indicated that they will be integrating those recommendations in their work over the coming year and reviewing them. The Board of Higher Education took a formal motion on the report to adopt all of the four recommendations as the board's position on those issues. So if we have questions about what the Board of Higher Education position is on student involvement, programming guidance, and so forth, we can look at the recommendations of this group. So thank you all for your contributions to that and things that are moving and changing. So just to update on each of the recommendations. First of all, the budget structure, I'm going to pass on them. That's later on the agenda. We're going to have some continued work on that. The second recommendation, providing program enrollment guidance for the deployment of programs and the enrollment of students that was provided in that report. There's some good guidance that includes programs focused on high demand jobs. And these are not exclusive, but these are the priorities for if resources are going to be expended. Let's focus on programs that bring high demand jobs, high graduation employment rates. They're feasible for being delivered and accessed. There's student demand for them. The full program is available. Those are the priorities. For students, we of course start with high school completion where it's needed. We encourage those who are within 3 years of release and who have the interest and aptitude to go into these occupations that are offered with technical education programs. That's where we try to prioritize them or we recommend. And then general education, because that's transferable to a variety of programs, either during or after incarceration, and an associate bachelor's degree.
I have a question about that. Within 3 years of release, I mean, what's the time frame of, is it just because you don't have the space for it? Or can we move that a lot sooner so that they can become the TAs and the mentors and the tutors and keep repeating the information?
We have actually began to welcome students that are within 5 years of release. For those very reasons, we have graduates that are currently employed. I guess that was something I should have mentioned on there. We currently have 60 days working with programs.
I just moved your time from 60 to 90 seconds. Just kidding.
Take it off. Next meeting, I need 30.
Just kidding.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, county jails, we addressed that in the program deployment recommendations and focus support for the interest of resources for corrections as much as possible to move students where their program is being delivered and to keep them there, as opposed to trying to have all the programs at all the places. But we fill and stabilize programs at their current locations before we work on expanding. We deploy county jails if resources, facilities, and students are available there. Some of the county jails have a pretty full population. Others have more ability to take it on. And we consider remote delivery.
So I think with that, I would love to hear from the jails next time of what their capacity is for the different programs and where they, how many seats are available or what they could create in looking more of this remote model.
I speak to the county jails.
Yeah.
So I've been going around the state this program year, right, and going to the county jails, talking to adult education programs. But what I've seen are a couple of like super innovative, I think they're innovative models. Like in Emory County Jail, I was there, and the inmates were like desperate for additional post-secondary options, and there's nothing there, right? So our adult education teacher actually figured out how to do. They have access to Edgenuity, which is like an online high school learning management system, and they have on Edgenuity they have like AP prep courses. So he's been giving them AP prep courses, and then he figured out how to, through some kind of grant program, get funding, and then he's a proctor for actual CLEP tests based on the preparation for AP. So he has like a student pass a psychology CLEP test and some credit, right? Like just desperate and trying to find these ways. Like in several county jails are like right now, currently our adult education teachers are proctoring tests for like correspondence courses like Adams State and other colleges that offer correspondence courses. So that's happening. And I was in South Stampede Jail yesterday, also in Gunnison Prison. And actually on the adult ed side, so this isn't post-secondary, but they're currently using Zoom courses from the prison in South Stampede County Jail, right, to provide additional resources to the students who are trying to get their high school. So I mean, I think things are already starting to like kind of happen. It would be great if we could expand that, because what we hear all the time from our adult education students, right, is they're desperate for additional.
So Tim, would you be able to facilitate a written report next time from the jails that are contracted to have state inmates, what their education offerings are for them, and what their again, the triumphs and the challenges, so that we know how we can connect and help eliminate those barriers.
You've been involved with all the counties, so I wonder if someone at corrections could help with that.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. So we can look at how many would be eligible for post-secondary and how many are receiving some kind of education towards that. I think that would be great. Okay.
Okay.
Before we move on, just wanted to acknowledge that a point there, move and keep students at the program of interest. We have seen significant growth and progress on that corrections that really needs to be acknowledged. I do not see that as, that was our biggest concern, and it is not. So thank you guys for all this money. That recommendation has been taken into consideration, and it's not an issue.
I agree. We worked on HB 194 a couple of years ago that required that, but you've really implemented it.
Yeah.
So that's up to you.
And the last of the higher ed recommendations on student advisement, we will talk a little bit more on legislative recap with the bill that passed. But essentially, the recommendation was to make sure that each of the institutions that are providing programs there provide advisement to go along with that and to have it be consistent with what's within campus. And then I added the 2 recommendations that went to corrections that I think we've already touched on: the student housing and stability, finding ways to keep students where their programs are, and so was on data collection. I don't know if you have any updates on any of these, but we'll just go ahead. Okay. I think that was an ongoing effort. I think at some point in our agenda, we've got something in one of our future meetings to kind of just follow up and see where that is. So it takes us to our items for our study items that you as a council identified in our 2083 report. And as indicated in the report, your reference was we need some work groups together. We work during the interim between 23 and the beginning of 24 here on these issues. So we've done that. We're going to have some reports. Chris is going to talk a bit about information technology. So I'm going to just kind of skip that one real quick. Certificate articulation. Lance, just a quick word. I know that you've had a meeting or 2 with some folks regarding articulation of certificates into associate degrees. Do you want to maybe just give us a quickie?
How much time do you want me to take?
60 seconds.
60 seconds. Okay. Well,
I think it'll take a little longer because I think our purpose today is we're going to have another report in another meeting and spend more time on it as you come up with recommendations.
Perfect.
So our purpose today is just where are you in the process of studying this, and are there things that we as council would like to encourage you to focus based on what you're already doing?
Sure. So first off, the initial thought was brought up of how we created a degree pathway for incarcerated students. And I went through a lot of the Salt Lake Community College's programs, as well as the programs that we have currently at the prison. And the one that came closest was welding. And what ended up happening is, as far as the tech ed is concerned, we were about 26 credit hours short or deficit of what's being offered at Salt Lake Community College. So the thought is first off, how can we potentially come up with that deficit? Could we potentially work with Salt Lake Community College to have our faculty as an adjunct, or could they potentially teach at our location to be able to offer those courses? And then the other thing that's come up recently, I really have to hand it to the folks at Snow College. They are really working hard to articulate with all of the technical colleges. They've recently had a meeting with us, and my hope for the future, a potential, is that that if a student is able to fulfill a complete certificate at the UDC, that they would be able to potentially transfer and have some online options to Snow College or that type of thing. And so that is in the works and more brainstorming to come. But realistically, where we're at right now is basically collaborating with the different schools and brainstorming on ways of possibly coming up with potential solutions or pathways. And then we just need to be reporting back to USHI on the findings.
Questions, comments, encouragement to Lance's group. They work on recommendations to come.
Do you work with Talent Ready Utah or TWS on what the job need is in the state?
Currently, I have not gone down those avenues. What I've done primarily is looked at the programs that we have existing at the UDC facility and the potential transfer options to the other locations. We do work with those entities here at the school, but I have not gone through that route for the prison.
Maybe we can have a work group put together to be able to connect with them so that we can adjust I think you kind of have that access from your institution, don't you?
We can allow programs that greatly.
Yeah.
If you remember, we worked together in implementing new women's programs, and all of those programs, you're like, oh, there's this high impact programs.
programs.
So maybe it's UDC also, and how you are connecting them with jobs afterwards, which companies are looking and wanting and their job fairs. And I think that may help to get some input from you, from the business side of what they need to prepare the inmates for, right?
Group 4, pay attention.
Absolutely. Great suggestion.
Speaking from Telegram Utah, I'm very excited about that partnership and ready to have those meetings. So
Yeah, tell us your
Bring
name.
in the bins.
okay.
Good. I think that is the important part for this alignment
Yes.
of how we can help, especially in that. I think an important question when someone is begins their time, that they, as they get closer, knowing I'm going to exit in Sanpete or I'm going to exit in Logan. And then what are the jobs that are most likely going to be there? Because my family's up there, that's where my support system is. And being able to help direct their pathway to what's actually available, because that's very different than the UNC Basin, right?
Yeah.
So,
So we're just going into all the planning and the investigating that we're doing.
yeah,
So I have to do more.
yeah, and I'd love maybe a written report when you have something that you could share with us of what your alignment is and any recommendations. That'd be great.
The third recommendation study item was documentation of high school completion, and we've been having some conversations about that. Dr. Buckenway, I don't know, it's just, I put done with a question mark on it based on your comments.
Well, turning back to Brian's comment, yes, this has been an issue, but it's my understanding that it's being handled and addressed in case managers now. Corrections is on file.
And I don't have the number in front of me, but I know when I looked at it about 2 weeks ago, within about a 2-month time period, we had received about 90 records. Just an extra, so we're kind of putting all hands on deck to address this issue, and so we're getting a lot more, we're getting the records that we need.
If there are GEDs too, like GED from out of state, like it's easy for us in Utah to share our records for GED with the president or anyone there, right? But if there are students who are needing GED completions from outside of state, there's been a lot of work at the GED like upper level to coordinate that effort with states, right? So like I have a list, should just give it to you. I have a list of
You and I can
contacts, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Thinking about that.
Okay. So we'll check that one, that's report on just the three, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So, 1/4 of the way through the year after this meeting, must work hard. Okay. Item 4 on reintegration, thanks we have for recruiting Tanner on your team to head this group up. And I think you have seen or two that Tanner, you're gonna report on kind of where we go, but the item on this is to review and provide recommendations on authority in math. I think you're still out there. We appreciate you suggesting that this go into our recommendations this year. So we know that we'll be very interested in your input and feedback as this group goes along, but to provide recommendations on creating a unified authority for reintegration guidance that evolves, but is not driven by corrections and includes collaboration with community councils. So these kinds of things. So can you just speak briefly about where the group is and what your question is?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear you very well. This is my part, right?
Yeah, here you go.
All right. So we've met once, kind of talked about kind of where we're at and where we want to head. There are some things that we kind of want to lean into of seeing if we have everyone at the table that we need to make sure that we're successful in reintegration. I've worked in the past with some reentry work at the county jail level, and so we really want to see if we have all the players that we need to make sure it's successful, and then from there working with the jail reentry team, which kind of goes into everything else you guys have talked about, making sure paperwork's involved, making sure they have a good setup. And on my side of working within the school, making sure they're able to integrate back into the education side of continuing anything they haven't finished yet, because we want to make sure there's the least amount of downtime for them from when they release to get back integrated into society. And so making sure they have that paperwork, they're not waiting for, their IDs, they're not waiting for their financial aid, they're not waiting for all those things that kind of create barriers and an opportunity for them to get back into old habits. And so we are working on those things and seeing where it goes. And so far, it's pretty exciting to see everybody involved in what they're wanting to do.
Thanks, Tanner. Any questions, comments, things for this group? Good luck.
I'd like to update you since I'm applicable to several of these goals that it has happened since our last meeting, which is we recrafted our, what we used to call our programming division that housed education into a reentry and rehabilitation division. So we have added our correctional case managers, the people who are actually developing the CAPs, the action plans for the individuals under one umbrella, as well as our transition teams who are preparing people for the release into our community. So kind of that last step. And at the same time, we're looking at the role of our case managers and how we can back up that reentry process to the day they enter our facility and be more intentional and deliberate from the beginning of their incarceration to do just that. Look at where will you be releasing and how can we shape your path during your incarceration to prepare you for release. The right person and the right programs at the right time. We're collaborating very closely with the Board of Partners Control, which we'll talk about later, on how we are showing the risk reduction that comes with the completion of the programs to make sure that that person is getting credit for the work that they're doing. So there is a lot happening behind the scenes in corrections that I think you'll be thrilled about when we can start to land the plane, so to speak. We're taking off right now, and we've got a journey ahead of us, but you will be seeing some changes to the way we're handling our cases and the way we're coordinating our reentry planning, and it will look much different than it looks today.
Excellent. Can you talk a little bit about putting the case managers in the community now instead of doing this Department of Corrections? That's important.
Yeah, so we have a reentry team, and previously we had some reentry teams all over the place. One in our prisons division, one in our community corrections division. We had some case managers and programming, and now that they're aligned and they're under really one chain of command, we can just be better coordinated internally. But to actually, we had been meeting with people while they were still incarcerated, and now we will not only have our case managers in the community, so in our region offices, to help with the complexities of reintegration, like we've been talking about. How do I get my transcripts? How do I connect with employment? And they can be a support to the agents who have more of the accountability side of some of these community supervision. Now we have like case navigators basically to help with the more difficult, the cases that are just more difficult, people who have a few more barriers, and they'll be actually in the community instead of housed at the facility, which gives them a much more connection with the people that they're helping.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think that's a huge step forward that the Department of Protection made those people available once people return to the community. I mean, if your sole resources still located at the prison, it's not great. And if I could I take a couple minutes of somebody's time who was planning on speaking? Samantha said I could have hers. Lance actually, he's shaking his head. He's very upset with me right now. He had a very good presentation that I think he didn't think fit into the 60 seconds of time that he was allotted. It's a pathway to a degree. I think Brian's familiar with some of this information. We let Lance just talk a little bit.
That's the information I didn't have.
Lance, let everybody, man.
Want to share your screen?
Okay, here we go. Start share and share. Allow sharing. Here we go.
Okay, I have to unmute and then I'm gonna have to get my screen here. So I actually closed it down. I didn't want to take more time than what was necessary for everybody. So but I will really be quick here. Okay, almost there. Now I just need to get to Zoom to share. I may not, oh, it is gonna allow me. Okay. So, all I had here is I tried to go through a very simplistic plan of how we could get a pathway for incarcerated students. And realistically, if we break it down, simplicity, the high school students will come in, they could potentially take a tech ed degree or a certificate, but ultimately they may want to go directly to a degree granting institution. And so the pathway may not be through Davis Tech, but since that is the discussion we're on right now, what's happening right now is students at UDC can either get into Salt Lake Community College or Davis Tech independently. And we are very grateful for Salt Lake Community College. They've done a lot for us out there. And so I hope this comes across as is gratitude and wanting to find a way that we can come up with a pathway. We have several different programs. The one that when I went through, the one that was closest, I thought, was actually the welding technology. For our program, students could potentially get 24 credits. And this is probably going to be hard to see on the screen that you have, but I went through and compared the credits that we potentially have versus that of Salt Lake Community College. And this is where I was saying we have a deficit as far as the tech ed courses. So somehow we would have to come up with basically 26 tech ed credits for the students at UDC taking our program to complete the Salt Lake College Welding and Fabrication and Inspections Associate degree. And so with that, we're going to have to collaborate or come up with some way of providing those 26 tech ed. And then I know that Salt Lake Community College is currently offering the general credits, that additional 14, which could potentially get them into their associate degree. Okay. With Snow College, just as I mentioned very quickly, this is just in the we're the creation stages, but they have met with all the technical colleges, and they are doing what they call Tech Connect with Snow College, and they're basically accepting all of the credits that we have for our programs with a certificate of completion. Now, there's a lot that goes into this, and of course, there's math requirements, there's English requirements, there's different levels. But my thought is with the online potential, I think we could potentially make a way for students to be able to work through those courses online, or even in collaboration with Salt Lake Community College with the general eds that they're teaching at the prison. The thought is if we could have a math tutor / collaborator that would be at the prison that would allow students to come in and log into online courses. My fear is the students at the prison are probably going to have a difficult time with the math, and so that's probably going to be one of the areas that the students are going to get caught the most. And if we had a facilitator, and I totally stole this picture from Texas. This is not our instructor or anything, but this is a math facilitator at a location in Texas, helping the students get through online courses. And so something like this, I think, could be potentially possible at the prison. And I did that super quick. I realized that you came back to it. Dan, thank you, I think, for having me do this. But there's a lot of great things happening, and I'm super excited and encouraged to hear all the students that are able to get through this. But really what we need to do is we need to have some collaboration, and then we need to get back with you. She just as was mentioned before. So, and I will jump off.
Sorry, I scared you off.
No, not at all. I just know sometimes it can be difficult when you're trying to get through a meeting, and I didn't want to take more time than necessary.
Yeah, and we'll have more time in other meetings. So I thought that was great.
Thank
I'm
you.
curious, what's the ability or barriers to doing online stuff?
Mostly hardware. UDC has been working very closely with the state technology arm, DTS.
So it's not so much the internet access?
It used to be. I would say if you asked me that this time a year ago, the outlook was grim. But we've unlocked that door. Internet access is now, we figured that out in a very secure way. Now it's, I would say it's hardware, just getting the tools in the hands of everybody that needs them. And Chris touched on that with, with, oh wait, did you?
I'm talking about.
He hasn't done it yet, Chris is going to do it. But it's hardware, it's getting the people, the laptops, the computers, the tablets, it's the access for that. I would say we're right on the cusp. And I just want to add too, sorry, we are UDC is very excited about what Lance just described, because this really expedites the process for everybody. So where it used to be, an individual would get a vocational certificate, and then if they wanted to go to Salt Lake Community College or Davis Tech, it was a hassle to figure out which credits transfer, and a lot of times a lot of the credits didn't. So it's like having the institutions all collaborate together means somebody basically could shave off a year of their associate's degree, could shave off a year or two of their bachelor's degree. It will have a huge impact for our population, because they'll be able to get so much more done while they're incarcerated. So this is wonderful.
Lance, we've been talking here about prison education, right?
Correct.
You're okay. But I thought I heard you say something that makes me think that this is even broader than what's going on in prison. It's institution-wide, statewide, between institutions. In other words, someone who is completing a certificate at Davis Tech or Mount Lion Tech could conceivably go on to a certificate degree at Stowe College.
That's correct.
That's kind of played out.
And once again, the great folks, I see Jay and Dr. Austin here, they have been on top of it. We have been working back and forth just these last couple weeks on how we can get that set up. And I'm very excited for the possibility. And it really opens up a lot of doors for everyone. And so my hope is this will be kind of the groundbreaking that might be able to help other institutions be able to follow the same path.
Can I put in a request for you, Lance, to connect with Samantha here at Talent Ready Utah? I think it would make a difference in corrections to have a geographical listing of where different jobs are needed, and then be able to compare that with what we are offering and what recommendations for other certifications or classes could be considered, and even having outside entities be part of that teaching and training remotely or whatever it may be, so that because some of it may be certification that is very job specific. So I think that would help if you can collaborate here with Samantha at Talent Ready Utah.
Absolutely. Samantha, I'll put my contact information in the chat if you have access to it, and you can reach out to me.
But I will get that for you.
It'll be fun sometime to hear about the clean machine. Is that their name? That thing that's going on. So, and related to that, back to reintegration. And I appreciate your report on that. But related to that, do you have folks involved from corrections? Some of the things that Maria is talking about. Do we need to do the Reese's peanut butter cup thing, the chocolate with peanut butter? Is that already going on?
Chestnut participating in that work.
Oh, good. Yeah. Great. And then Calvary might be at least interested in what goes on there with their connections with workforce and industry. Right?
Yep, I would connect with you to talk about that. So
student mentors. I think with everything that's on our plate, we haven't really launched into that, but Dave, I put your name on that. So. Talk about mentors, Bob. Maybe we should put Dan on. You had 6.
Well, I will tell you that we have 6 individual working TA positions, but Tanner and I, and Dan Chestnut and Brian are actually working on a student mentor program for old students. So, that's more of a May item than an April, but we're really there.
Okay. That's great. Good progress on there. Anything else on student mentors? But some of that goes to policy, and I don't know if it's even statute, but, it's a little tricky given that people live in different areas, how do they provide mentorship to somebody, but we're working on it. It's really a program that we're trying to develop on our main campus in Kaysville with student mentors. We feel like prison would be a good place to actually have a program. Just see how it would work.
Something just to add on that as well is since Davis Tech is at Mill Creek Juvenile Center, we really want to see how successful it is at the prison, not only to scale it to the main campus, but also to work with the juveniles that are at the Mill Creek facility. So it'll be really exciting to see how that works, so we can work with other incarcerated students.
What's that?
No, that's. Okay, study item number 6 on retention. Again, that's what I think that's still pending, but one of our items that we recommend for study on the list here was to review the causes of student non-completion and provide some recommendations. Okay, I put Salt Lake Community College with a question mark on it because we haven't got a group lead started on that yet. I don't know if that's you or your associate there, HJ, right? I think that could help. Maybe lead some conversation about
For sure, it makes sense that we would try to read out on it in light of the numbers that we're talking about. And we do end up with a number of individuals who just want to try college out. And it's hard to really map out and demonstrate the effect that has on an individual who jumps in and who just wants to try it out, and they successfully complete a college class. And that shows them that they're smart, that they're capable, that there's things that they can do, but then they just decide, oh, college isn't for me, which it isn't for it. So, and yet, even that one class, I mean, we see it, those of us that are involved with it, it is oftentimes transformative in that person's life. So retention is an important issue, but it's also kind of difficult to navigate and understand.
Oh, yeah, I mean, some of the student focus, so it's access.
So in terms of, I guess the way to approach it would be just focusing on what are the barriers and challenges for retention.
You can put that in your challenges for next time as well, as maybe some recommendations or how to track that.
Yeah.
Is it because they got moved? Is it because of behavior? Was it because of something else, right? Or not interested? That will kind of help make a reality data point for us.
Yeah.
That could easily be added to the screen sheet here.
Yeah. We can do that. And off the top of my head, just as we mentioned, there is not a problem that we've seen in the past with students moving out of their housing sections into places where they can continue their program. So usually if there's a retention issue, it's based upon discipline challenges and someone is violating expectations and therefore can continue. It's really what our main issue.
And do they come back in generally, or do they stay out?
They're always welcome to come back in, but it really depends on the situation and circumstance. If they've gone to maximum security, which is often the case, then when something like that transpires, then they have to work their way out of it. But we absolutely, those that are in our program that continue with it beyond a course or two, even with something like that transpires, they're excited to get back, and we do bring them back in as soon as they're able.
Is there an option when they're in maximum security for them to remotely continue, listen, being part of the classes or continue that? Or is it just, I don't know the nature of it, that's why I'm asking.
Potentially. Yes, right now, we're not offering any post-secondary opportunities in maximum security. We're offering some of our risk reduction courses.
Yeah.
Usually virtually, but we haven't set up any virtual options yet for maximum security. It could be done.
I think that goes back to Rand's previous point of location, access. Our primary education spaces are in our general population. While there's places to complete programming, they're not quite successful to our level 2 or higher custody population, and we know that they have
Something to do.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, as we mentioned, and I think the last one, time cuts for associate degrees. And Maria, thanks for heading up some study on that, but any thoughts about where you're going with that or?
Yes, absolutely. We had, I think, 2 very productive meetings with the work group, as well as some work in between those meetings to gather some data about what's been successful in other states, as well as what our board of pardons role and other stakeholders would have an appetite for if we actually say there should be a mandatory time cuts. The way it's written right now, mandatory time cuts are capped at 8 months, maximum 8 months for the mandatories. However, we've learned in our collaboration with the board that there is discretionary time cuts available. So our case managers can put in a request for a discretionary time cut on an associate's degree completion or another degree completion, and the board they will look at that. So I think absent of recommending that this is a mandatory, we can ask for discretionary already for the associate's degrees. As I already mentioned, we're in a time of transformation in our reentry and rehabilitation division, and looking at what we put forward for discretionary cuts is definitely on the list. We also have been in great collaboration with the board. We're meeting as the reentry rehabilitation leadership team 4 hours every month to dive into cases and problem solve together where people are getting caught up in the system and how we can help push them through. So I feel very positive that after we start to look at what we're pushing through a discretionary time cut to the board, and we start to see what they're approving for higher degrees, then we can make a better recommendation on what's realistic for a mandatory. Does that make sense?
Great. I look forward to that. Okay, I think that's the end of the, yeah. I don't know if Dan out there is available, going to just do a thumbs up or anything you'd like to say, or just thumbs up if we're going the right direction. Feel free to chime in. But that concludes the update on where we are as a council now. Some great work going on already, so hopefully you keep that momentum.
Thank you so much for all that, Jared. You work hard to make sure that we're keeping track of what we are trying to measure and improve. So thank you so much. So you have a handout with you and that we'll put online here that is the legislation from this year, HB 248, inmate amendments apparently. I've written it all down. It's pretty straightforward. So here's some of the features with a reentry division. We've started talking about this, but I think that's where the opportunity for their records and making a resume and really preparing all of that is, and having their education records ready to go. And that also includes medical records too. The second section is the Board of Pardon and Parole. And so as Maria mentioned, this is really them being on the front side instead of the back end of what the inmate is doing. So for example, they can, upon entering the correctional facilities, really after all the determination, say, here's all the things we want you to do before you come and see us, instead of start some of those things and then come see us and then you have a lot more to do. Because for me, that risk was when the board would say, yeah, you've got good behavior, let's let you out. They hadn't finished the programming that really needed to be done. So I'm excited about that. And I think that will also change the educational opportunities and hope and incentives for them. Department of Corrections to utilize the date of the inmate board hearing to determine the timing of program completion, incentivize an inmate to work towards that goal, initiate an inmate in at least 2 programs as the case action plan is created, So, and I mentioned this to Director Red, but, my vision for some of these inmates is that all at the same time, they can do their programming, their treatment, have a job, and have education, kind of like a high school schedule, right? There's certain times of the day that they need to do one or the other, and I think it prepares them more for when you get out, you have to go to work, you still have to go to the store, you have to do your AA, you have to do whatever, right? And so, we're on our way to at least starting 2 programs as soon as the case action plan's created. And then, throughout their time in corrections, prioritize the placement of inmates for the programs, which you're working on doing, that's awesome. Annually report on inmate program completion and that they're participating in programs, under the challenging circumstances that may arise. Also, for those that are giving money from the outside, that they have access to an inmate's financial records if they're contributing to it. I think, I know from a personal story of, I need shoes and not quite sure if the money's actually going to buy shoes, you know how that goes. So that'll help. Post-secondary education in corrections, specifically in this bill, provide the student success advisors to help facilitate the application, grant, scholarship pathways. Also, a requirement for Utah inmates to be eligible for federal Pell Grant, so that should help that. Also giving them in-state residency status for tuition purposes, including for 1 year after incarceration for their education. And I have to say, this is what this group worked so hard to figure out this last year. And I want to say, I really appreciate the institutions for being willing to figure out how to absorb the cost initially, because the legislative process this year didn't want to fund anything. And so you are, at least Salt Lake Community College and Davis Tech, are absorbing your costs for the student access advisors. We need to figure out how to move that forward, if it should be a priority for UDC and asking for those, if we can work with USHE to have it a separate line item. I don't know. What do you think the answers to that, Jared?
Yeah,
Can they put it into the performance funding for?
yeah, I think we have some discussion in terms of the use. I mean, beyond this prison education folks, but so the folks that build the budget as well as the fiscal analysts, what's the best way to approach that? Do we do it as a prison education item, or do we include it in the institution's like many things go in the institution budget request? But one of the issues is how to get prioritized on your performance funding, and do we make it? And I think some of this will come up in our conversations that we're going to talk about on how we structure the budget, because there are some questions and issues around, does this become part of your institution's prioritization towards the 3 performance measures that are required to receive their performance funding, or is it something else about the whole?
So let's put a pause then, and we'll come back to when we're doing the whole budget discussion.
Yeah.
The last thing is a new position, funding for a full-time for actually nursing and that you work so hard in UDC and elsewhere for them to be stable emotionally. They get out, they don't have a doctor's appointment, they don't have anybody refilling their medication, records don't transfer as far as what their diagnosis was and the amount of medications they were on, nor does it transfer when somebody enters into the correctional facility. So this position is really important as part of the re-entering division, that we figure out how to get the current prescriptions and diagnosis from doctors when they come in, and how to help them get that Medicaid appointment before they even leave the correctional facility into the city that they are returning, so that they know when they're gonna, and how they're gonna get that. So that was a really important one. So that's a summary, and I wrote it down so you can take it with you. You can look at what applies to you and how you can help facilitate that. And I do have to say, UDC, you have been amazing, because in working with Brian, you were already starting to implement a lot of these things. So the purpose in putting it in code is, regardless of who's going to be in charge in a few years, these things are standard practices that are really helpful for better outcomes. So I think it would be helpful if you have anything on this list that you want help from this group, so that it's easier for you to accomplish these. You can let us know, okay? Thank you.
So circling back just a little bit, if I may, on student advisors. One of the pieces that went in with that was a requirement that for the institution to report to the council here on the advisement that you have done during the year. So that, of course, will start in the coming year, but this might be a good year to just kind of look back and get some practice, some experience with how do we report that. You may have some thoughts on that, and I would welcome any thoughts you have, but my initial inclination is let's look to what you're already required to do on accreditation. I'm familiar with what Council on Occupational Education does for technical colleges. I'm not quite familiar with Northwest requirements, but the COE has the requirement that whatever you do on the main campus, you have to offer it consistently wherever else you're going to offer it. And so however they monitor that and report that, it seems to be like we can be helpful to the institutions if we simply have you do your reporting to us is simply matching and consistent with what you report on accreditation. And I don't know how familiar you are with the accreditation.
Even WCCU has the same expectation.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So maybe I think we can look at how that gets reported, or at least monitored, site visits and so forth, and just see if we can do those same kind of approaches to the reporting. And then I also wanted to kudos to the institutions that had conversations with many of you about absorbing the cost of business, right? We've got great advisement already. It's right there. Yeah, one was out there. But you can do it better. You can do it maybe more. In some ways, it takes more to be consistent with the main institution where you are. What's the nature of the population and the facilities you're operating in. So.
And also facilitating those in the jails or the facilities for them to do the applications and the practice. I think there's opportunity that we need to really look forward to. I have one more thing regarding legislative update. So I am opening this bill file regarding inmates' financial circumstances and education for finances, both while they're incarcerated and when they get out. So let me give you an example. I'm collaborating with the Utah Tax Commission, Recovery Services, and the Office of Debt Collection for them to actually collaborate on what debt is owed. And the inmates, upon getting in, those agencies need to know that they are now incarcerated because they have been continuing to charge them the same amounts. And so suddenly their credit scores are dumped and diving. And they don't even know it and don't have control over it. It takes a while to renegotiate. So we want that at the onset to have a whole put on their account. And then for them to really have a financial experience the whole time they're incarcerated. So if they actually have a job, instead of the wage just being garnished for the restitution, that they actually physically see, oh, good, I'm reducing that restitution. Oh, by the way, every dollar you put towards it, the state will pay 75% of your restitution that is owed. But if they don't know that, I want the incentives in there. of how they can start planning for that, because when they get out, they need to know, here's my income. And having that program be able to help them give an idea of what your expenses are, what's left over, and how you're gonna manage your finances. So if they can learn this and consistently be able to see how they're doing, I think it's gonna help the state of Utah to be more successful in getting that restitution paid, debts from education taken care of, among other things. And so so my request to all of you is, can you within your institution see if you can give recommendations for an existing financial program that might be able to house this, or that we could expand or adjust? And then the second thing is, how would you recommend that continuing financial education piece for them to look to see where they are when they get out? I also want not just the incentives, but the notifications of, you have 6 more months before we start charging interest, right? Those kinds of things. They don't know what the laws are. They don't know what the opportunities are. And this should also prevent double, triple dipping from each of the agencies after they get out, which sometimes happens, even though it's not supposed to. So I'm really looking at the overall financial literacy, debt needs, and helping them to not feel so overwhelmed upon exiting with so many debts. And even considering, do we need to eliminate child support while they are incarcerated under most circumstances, instead of accruing thousands of dollars of debt where they don't really have the ability to earn the money to help contribute. So please reach out to me.
Yeah, I was just going to thank you. I think that's exciting. And I do know that Sonic Community College, there has been quite a bit of interest in facilitating many of these same services that you've identified at a higher level on our mainstream campuses, to the point that there's a desire to incorporate that into the appropriations. You know, kind of, so that's an exciting thing to consider. There's maybe a possibility that we can call this together and provide something that would be very helpful.
That'd be awesome.
So that's something that would be worked on, whatever student area support.
Yeah.
And how to expand that to all the inmates, right?
I spoke with Tim Sheehan regarding this a little while ago. He shared some excitement, enthusiasm regarding similar things.
And this legislation that we did pass also includes incentives for completion. And so a lot of that is really helping them to incentivizing them to pay more of the restitution and so forth, as a lot of their incentives. So, all right, Jared.
Can I make a suggestion on that?
Yes.
We've all, as an institution as well, we've begun to look into this, for the Federal Community Reinvestment Act for banking institutions actually requires that they provide financial literacy courses to individuals at no cost to them. So we are exploring where our offering these courses on our main campus at no cost to our students who want to take advantage of how to navigate loans. Save them. I think it could very easily be accomplished at the prison hall. Thanks.
Is there a way for them to continue that on the base?
Very good question. I would assume so, because again, they are required to provide these services. They have a list of qualified activities under this act.
Okay,
Financial literacy.
And they're like highly involved with the financial literacy courses that are at the high school level already. And it's possible that we could partner together so that on the outside, right, like they could complete their financial literacy on the outside. I think that could be possible.
We want them to be contributing members of our communities. And this is a huge way for them to know how they can support their families and contribute to to what their community needs and what they need. So, all right, we'll talk. Because I've got a work group together with this other group and with legislative staff. So I think connecting you would be awesome.
Okay.
Let's see, we have an adoption of the council agenda and work plan that's also before you. Jared, do you want to just summarize those?
Yeah, so this was in your meeting materials, it's attached to the agenda. What we've done on here is trying to identify what are the things we'll be working on this year. And you'll see that most of this is built around these study items, coming forward with some recommendations on those. Rather than spend a lot of time going through those, hopefully you've had a time to look at them, or maybe you're looking at them now. Of course, we have today's meeting that we already know what we're doing here, next week we look at finalizing things that are budget related because of budget cycles. We'll talk about that in a minute. Have a report out on the items related to that. Number 4, corrections is required to do some reporting on, wait, a small event carried. Some reporting on some data elements there on your education career program. So it might be helpful or interesting in this group to have corrections, maybe share what you're reporting on that. Maybe we'll be ready for the articulation group to report on their recommendations. As you look at these schedules, if some of your groups are ready to go sooner than we've got on the agenda, just kind of let us know and we can work them in as time allows, or if some of you need more time and want to need to be in a future meeting, we can adjust that as well. But our third meeting, we'd be starting to zero in on what are our priorities and recommendations going to be for the year, so that we can have a few weeks to mull that over and bring it back for our final report there. And then I've listed some items at the bottom that may be of interest as time allows. You may have some others. So with that, I don't know if you want to make this as a motion and or invite others to give input on it, or how's the best way to do that?
First, I'll just say, is there, you opened up for anyone to contact you to be added, or present sooner, or whatever it may be, right? We don't have on here. So is there any objection to that? So I think we could adopt this, and then it's open for flexibility as well, but I don't know if we need to take a motion on it since it may be in flux. Yeah, I think it's a good structure for us to work with.
Okay, so if you have any things that you want to add to that or take, just let us know.
So the next item is budget recommendation process. So one of the council's duties per statute 53B 35202 is to recommend requests for legislative appropriations to the Board of Higher Education and to Department of Corrections. And along those lines, if we have recommendations as a council that involve state funding, we should consider and vote on them by our June meeting so that UBHE and UDC can consider them in their budget request cycles. So that's an urgent decisions that we have right now. At this point, we have funding structure and instructional technology being introduced on today's agenda, but if there's any others, we can definitely manage that. We'll be talking about prison education funding in just a moment. But are there any comments or things that you would like to have brought up to be considered for our June meeting that they could request in their budget?
Seems like I've heard some conversation in today's meeting about student advisors. Does that need to go on here for budget recommendations? We have Russ in the room who knows how to get money.
I know how to live it, it's process, but I don't know how to fund it.
And I would also add the the financial education piece, if we need to boost that somewhat, then that may be part of it as well.
And to, I can't speak to the systems of the other state agencies that would be involved, but there may have to be some data integration. So.
Would that be, could you put that as part of your priorities or funding? I'm not sure how it works for you to propose that, you know, in the governor's budget. Just because that's what is happening is when I had all of those agencies, they don't communicate. The only communication that there is by an employer who does the check, and there's nothing other than that. And so this would be the first of its kind where they could, it's like a HIPAA agreement, right? The inmate saying, yes, I want them to release the information to this program so that that is ongoing, right? So that I know exactly where I am in my financial debts, really is what it is. So is that something that could be included?
Yeah, I'd never say no, right?
Right.
You can always have an open mind. I would wonder what our capabilities as the Department of Corrections is to do that, or if we need to collaborate with DCS on actually getting that information, making it talk to our system, which is pretty locked down. So I just don't have the answers. So no.
Yeah, I'll include you in our work group. Okay. Eric's been in there, but I'll include you in the work group so that we can try to find out, we can get that information before too.
Yeah, just make sure it's landing in.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else with things that you feel would need to be funded? Many of you have brought up space. We don't know what space you are requesting or what equipment you are requesting or how that can be done. That needs to be submitted so that we can have it as an item for consideration, right?
Yeah, Chris is gonna talk about equipment in a minute.
So that should be part of the proposal. All right, so
I'll circle back to the institutions on the advisor questions and what the needs are and how much it might cost.
Great. All right, Jared, why don't you lead the present education funding structure conversation?
Okay, as mentioned earlier, one of our recommendations last year was to recommend to the Board of Higher Education and to Corrections that we request the legislature to move the funding that's now going through corrections contracting and have it go directly to the institutions. So that was the recommendation. As we began to follow up on that and see, okay, how would this work? It's a conversation between UT and with Corrections. And maybe before we get to that, some of the benefits we were reporting would come from moving that funding would be consistency within an institution on the budgeting, consistency between institutions on how we budget for prison education, institution control of the educational processes and expenses, and the responsiveness, the ability to treat tuition the same that for incarcerated students as you do for regular students, which would also include eligibility for financial aid. Those are some of the benefits that we were looking at when we made this recommendation.
And that would also include what they owe for their education, right? And them being able to visibly see, here's what my debt is for my education. Oh, if I mentor or TA, I can while I'm here, reduce that instead of waiting till I'm out. Those are some of the incentives that this kind of financial program and constant work on would benefit the inmates.
So as we considered how that would occur and what would be the impact there, we have a little work group that met between Corrections and usually and identified some concern and questions, and essentially it boils down to are the benefits worth the cost? We have had some of these conversations there, but are the benefits worth the cost? Let's make sure that we're doing it the right way, doing something that's really going to be beneficial before we just push a switch and go to the fiscal analyst and then appropriations committees and make this happen. And so the recommendation was, let's, rather than go forward with that, let's continue our contracts through this fiscal, or through the coming fiscal year 25. They're already set up that way. And these are for the technical education contracts with the 3 institutions. And let's convene a work group that will look at, are there some things we can do on the existing contracts without even making any changes to bring about some benefits? Are there some things that we could do with amendments to the contracts? And address some questions and concerns and impacts, which I've listed here. So one suggestion was, let's look at, when we look at Pell implementation, let's learn from Salt Lake Community College's experience. They've been doing it for a couple of years now. And the national experience with the rollout that's been going on, the second chance Pell and reinstitution of health. Let's also look at the telephone surcharge. How is it structured? What's the future look like for that? As far as incarcerated individuals making phone calls, being charged for them, and are there alternatives to that? Let's also look at the institution budget that you already have now and how they would be impacted. Let's do some cost benefit analysis of what are the cost benefits of keeping it the way it is in our contracts and versus moving it directly to the institution. Look at how does the state want to provide direction and resources and accountability for prison education that might have some bearing on whether it's line item or goes over here or goes in a larger budget. And let's look at the state budget. What is the ability of the state budget to do this? What are the intentions of the state for funding prison education? So with that as a backdrop, oh, that's the end of the slides. All right. Because that's just kind of an update of where we are. So with that, we did convene a group, and what I've done is we started with Davis Tech because there wasn't the biggest contract right now and probably the most questions and impact there. We started with them. We worked with their finance folks and worked on a pretty detailed list of questions related to what we just saw there, and identified some things that we think could be considered when we go through it. But the long and short of that, Dan, I don't know if you want to speak to this, but the long and short of that that look was that it appears it would be beneficial to go forward with direct line item funding. With the biggest reason being that it reduces some duplication, has a potential of reducing some duplication of financial processes between the institution and corrections, where corrections has to look at and approve things, and the institution has to look at and approve things, and so on. So we kind of have laid that out. Some of the benefits related to Pell and student financial aid. I think we concluded that 2 things on that. One is it might be possible to provide Pell eligibility under contract arrangement. We do some adjustments to how the contracts are weighed up, whether or not. And also that, particularly for technical education, Pell eligible may be one of those things that ends up in that isn't worth the cost of going to it. You have shorter programs, you have lower tuition, and I think the estimates were you might recoup $100,000 in your budget with Pell, with individuals who might be eligible for Pell, which is less than 5% of your overall, and it's probably about what it would cost to hire someone to do all some of the facilitate Pell. And so there are some of those questions. I think we're going to kind of put the Pell issue aside and they go either way, whether we do by not focus on those other things. So we'll be circling with the other institutions and with the commissioner's finance team on where those things kind of play out. And then what we want to do is come to corrections and start looking at how does the telephone surcharge work, what's the future look like, is that a viable thing? So that's kind of where we are on that. And hope to be able to have some recommendations for our June meeting, so that if there is change recommended.
Can I just get a quick update? Where do you foresee with tablets and FaceTime and emails and all that? Where do you see the telephone role being?
Great question. We are, actually, Brian just attended a conference where he interfaced with a lot of our education, a lot of the vendors that are out there for at least the education side of program delivery on tablets. And you may want to add to that, but we're also looking at our current tablet situation and where we can expand that and what makes sense to do so. We've worked with a technology consultant on that project so far that's informing us with just things we didn't know about how the tablets work and the different pricing structures that are available depending on the vendor. I think, as you know, anytime you talk about switching providers or adding new technology, and it's a little bit bigger than just snapping your fingers and saying, we're gonna roll this out. But there is a strong desire for better electronic communication, more video visitation, email interface, not only internally, but with families that we know is really important to family reintegration. I mean, what teenager writes letters anymore? Like, they're all email. So we're in the process of that, and I would expect we have an update by next meeting.
Okay, I think that's really important to have a short term, here's what we're doing, and then a longer term, here's what we anticipate and how we're gonna make that shift. So thank you.
So that's the end of the update on the budget thing. Like I said, we hope to have on some of these issues and back recommendations next.
Okay, we have Chris gets to lead our discussion here. The first study item on our list from last year to consider is current and expected technology needs, including consideration of shared resources between institutions, adult ed and UDC. And so Chris, we'd love to hear your recommendations that you've identified.
So
You want to put it up or send it to me and I'll put it up?
yeah, I can do that. Would you like that?
Or share screen,
How do I connect to the projector?
share screen stuff. Needs to
You
join
have to
us.
be logged into.
Yeah,
your
if you
meeting.
log in, it's usually we can share the screen.
Oh, okay.
Make sure you mute your computer or we'll have some
Oh, I see what you're saying.
showing.
Jared, can you send me the link for the Zoom?
Do you have your Outlook calendar or maybe you don't have it? Okay.
I have not received that.
Why don't you guys start talking among sending it?
Sure.
Do that or just email it to me and I'll put it up.
All right, and probably do that. That's probably easier. If I can. You know what, it's letting me email you, Jared. It's giving me the spin wheel of doom for the internet.
Oh, you're not.
I can report this. This is just fine. So I heard from almost everybody. That's the good news. And was able to reach out and speak to all of the different partners that everyone is working with. I'll go ahead and I'll start with Salt Lake Community College. So I'll tell a little bit about each institution, what they've told me, and then recommendations based off of their comments. So Salt Lake Community College, we're deploying 200 laptops, as I mentioned earlier. We are also getting ready to deploy what are called Rachel servers. These servers would allow students to turn in their homework using their laptops through an intranet. It's not internet. They also provide offline versions of Wikipedia in English and Spanish, as well as English and Spanish versions of the Gutenberg Library, providing over 60,000 books to students that finally have a library. The issue is we currently have 300 active students at Salt Lake Community College, and we only have 200 laptops. The other issue that has been brought up over and over again is a lot of curriculum has been moved over to Canvas at Salt Lake Community College, as with many of the other institutions. And it has been requested that students be provided access to Canvas, which I know there is a prison version that exists. It is therefore recommended for Salt Lake Community College that their technology needs are 100 laptops, as well as access to Canvas software that would likely have to be provided through UDC. From the Utah Department of Corrections, I've spoken to both Brian and DTS. UDC is currently exploring the possibility of providing email accounts to students, which will have an associated cost with it. It is recommended that as educational opportunities expand and hardware and software costs increase, that infrastructure costs be considered for the UDC budget. Uinta Basin Technical College reached out. They're currently housed at the Duchesne County Jail. They have never really had the equipment necessary for instruction on theory for their program. Tim Miller has stated that they have one computer capable of running CAD software and a projector that is on its last legs. They would also like students to have access to laptops and Canvas so that they can deploy curriculum for better educational opportunities. Based on the population, it is recommended that Uinta Basin Technical College needs include 15 Justice Tech Solutions prison laptops and 3 professional desktop computers capable of running modern CAD software. A new projector is also recommended for their budgetary needs. Snow College, Michael Medley reached out. He said that they would like to be able to utilize the tablets at Central Utah Correctional Facility, but based off of his comments, it sounds as if there may not be enough for all potential students at Central Utah Correctional Facility. Snow College also specifically requested that students have access to Canvas learning management software and Microsoft Office software. Based on my personal experience with the current UDC tablets, they likely do not have the capability to run such software in an effective manner. And students would not have access to keyboards. Is also a probable solution. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to write a 20-page research paper for an anthropology class by typing it on your phone. I challenge you to do so. It's very difficult. It takes much longer than it does with a keyboard. It is recommended, that's based off of these concerns, that Snow College needs include 50 Justice Tech Solutions prison acceptable laptops. Likely the same model being used by Salt Lake Community College. It's called the Secure Book 6 model. The cost of a machine that's configured for long-term use, including a Wi-Fi card that can potentially be used as if internet ever becomes an option. And this can also be secured with cooperation with DTS so that they can be used safely in the prison environment. It's around $859 per machine. That does not include the cost of Microsoft Office software, which institutions will need to deploy an offline version that does not necessarily require internet access. So Office 365 will not work. It is also recommended that Snow College students be provided access to Canvas software. If laptops cannot be provided for Snow College, it is recommended that a computer lab be provided to students in the Central Utah Correctional Facility. Davis Technical College reported that all is well, and they are doing well. So
their own computer.
Skyview Academy also reached out as they were on this meeting. Skyview Academy has stated that high school needs include access to Canvas. Okay, and they also mentioned that they do not have standalone Office licenses and have run into the issue with Office 365 no longer working on faculty machines due to the lack of an ability to connect to the internet. This might be something UDC can assist them with by providing limited internet access for faculty to update those software needs. They also requested access to software for literacy needs, including Reading Horizons and potentially a GED mobile lab. as I believe Skyview Academy does not fall underneath USHE. I think that this is an excellent opportunity for sharing resources specifically on the Canvas software deployment. I think that that is something that will eventually have to be done. Overall recommendations, the number one thing that was brought up repeatedly by pretty much every institution was access to Canvas for students. Whether that's limited internet access through already existing infrastructure that the institutions have in place, or perhaps a UDC supervised version of Canvas. I get the feeling that everybody like Canvas.
High school does that too.
Yeah, they want that as well. Other overall recommendations are the hardware needs for institutions need to be met based on those institutions' needs. Each institution will likely need their own hardware due to different IT departments and different security setups that each institution will have. That is my report.
So you have all that written down, that you can share with us. Does that have does that have numbers associated with any of those?
I have the cost for laptops. I do not have costs because that would. Oh, do you want to comment?
Oh, no, sorry. When you're done, I was just going to share an example of an excellent collaboration that the University of Utah is doing with UDC, but finish, Chris, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I can provide an estimate for cost for that, if that is something that it would like, if you would like.
I think that what this council needs is to be able to see what those things are and what we can recommend for UDC to prioritize. And I'd also like to even look at what some of those are, and if there's others that have ideas of how to manage them. So for example, when you look at some of the larger purchases, are there companies that would like to sponsor that for corrections instead of just looking for government dollars for everything? I think there are some that would love to do it as a donation and invest in our community. We've got Silicon Slopes who could probably do that pretty easily, I would think, but to have other partners in the community is going to help a lot. And so, and I would also work with San Juan USU, the San Juan jail. They figured out how they could apply for, I don't know what the grant was, but they got all of their tablets for free.
Sam knows how to do it. He's out there.
Yeah, so I would find out from them, and then let's see how much of that applies to everything, including the main correctional facilities, for free tablets through this grant program.
Matt says in the chat that there are quite a few tech partners, including coding academies, since it will also be marketing for them.
Yeah, my day job is I'm actually a member of the Silicon Slopes marketing chapter, or as a vice chair or something like that. So we just put on a huge marketing summit last week. So that's the area that I work in. So talking about liaising with tech partners and things like that. I know that there's a lot of people that I've talked to that are interested in being involved.
Thank you, Matt. I think if you can connect with Chris before our next meeting to get some feelers for what you think the response might be, it would be easier for us then to be more accurate at what we're asking UDC.
Absolutely. Chris, last name, sorry, just so I make sure I get the email off the list right, because I'm not in the room.
Bradbury.
Okay, all right, I'll send you a message, Chris.
Thank you, Matt.
Is there really no way to like share resources though? Because I think like a lot of times we're sharing the same space. Like I'm even thinking like of innovative ways, like those secure laptops, maybe it's not one-to-one, but like for each pod or I don't know, whatever, right? There's like 5 computers that's shared that students have access to or can check out but that students can log onto and access, right? Like if they're an adult ed student, they can use adult ed stuff. Or if they're a Davis Tech student, they can access Davis Tech student. Or if they're a Salt Lake Community College student, right? Like in today's world, there's no way to share resources or like shared computer labs. Like I mean, I was down in Gunnison Prison yesterday, and they were talking about Snow College coming in, and they have space where, and Snow College is coming in the evening, like it makes sense that they use the same classrooms with the same projectors and the same computers, right? Like, why, if adult ed is in the daytime, right, Snow College is at night, why all new stuff for every program when it's all right there already, right?
The laptops.
If I could, Drew, it's a great question. One of the challenges is that since the laptops are not connected to the internet and go through the Rachel server, as Chris identified, students will be doing their work on time. And then at the end of that session, where does that work go? If they save it or something happens and then another student from another program comes in and jumps on that and starts to change things around. It's just, there are complexities there that make it difficult to share in light of the security that exists inside the prison facility. I don't even want it to.
So each individual laptop is going to have to be specifically blacklisted so that it cannot connect to UDC's secure networks, so that it's only connecting to the intranet that SLCC has set up. The other problem is if you share the machines between students, then students that are assigned those machines may not be complete their work because another student from a different institution would be using it. So it's going to come down to just resource allocation, not to mention if there isn't a situation as what happened earlier with, I think it was 1,200 students over on the East Coast that are using the same type of technology. Someone in corrections leaked the BIOS password, or somebody on the outside, I don't know who it was. I don't think they know who it was. Someone got a hold of one of the machines, leaked the BIOS password, which allowed all the students to access all of the hardware onto the machines, which allowed them to turn on the Wi-Fi, to change the MAC ID of the individual machines, etc. So, and it ended up with all 1,200 laptops being rolled out of educational facilities. So if that were to happen, we would have to pull the machines out, and then people who are using them for adult ed or Davis Tech would be unable to use them, and they would lose access to those machines.
So it's a great question, and there certainly can exist more collaboration with computer labs and things like this set up by UDC in the future. But yeah, I think we're just scratching the surface of what we're sharing regarding the challenges of facilitating that technology in a secure environment. And then if we're talking about sharing between students, let alone between institutions, privacy issues and support, that's a significant undertaking.
So there's probably likely ways where there can be sharing between institutions without thinking, if we're sharing a classroom and there's a desktop computer that are just designated for instructors with a projector, makes no sense for Salt Lake Community College or University of Utah to purchase those items when there are places where that share between students and kind of the scribbles that use for
There could be a lot of security and privacy issues with student machines, but for faculty machines to present lectures and PowerPoints, I think that's an excellent place for shared resources.
So can you identify what some of those practices might be, since you're doing technology, where some of the collaboration could take place?
So, for example, we have faculty laptops inside the prison that are already stationed. They've got standalone Microsoft Office software. Anybody who wanted to use them for educational opportunities within the prison, would be able to do so. So that would be very easy to facilitate.
Also, or we have UDC computer labs that are open to any education partner, high school, post-secondary ed, anything like that. One of the things I wanted to touch on, an example of what Chris was talking about is Andy and Daisy and their program. So University of Utah, for their bachelor program, the university has purchased laptops for their students, and Andy and his team, University of Utah's tech team and DTS has partnered to provide the University of Utah students access to the secure network that we originally created for Davis, Technical College. And so there's this great collaboration going on, like what Chris described, of hardware being provided by the University of Utah, the kind of the infrastructure by Davis Tech. And so the students will be allowed to bring in that laptop purchased by the University of Utah, so it's university property, but used inside the facility. So there's a lot of growth in this area, but it costs money to buy the hardware. And
yeah, and so all that is grant funding and a lot of additional work on our end to find those resources. Because I don't know if I missed an email or if it's just like the question that we're having in your working group, but also glad to kind of share University of Utah needs because we all.
Please do.
And Chris, I think it would be really helpful, especially for me and for UDC, as you itemize some of the cost of these things, to make a note of if they are eligible for grants or that kind of potential, or partnerships or whatever, so we can work on the direction that those funds could come from.
And maybe also.
And if I could,
yeah,
if I could add something to that too, I think there's an overlap between some of the reentry, the possibilities with a cohesive reentry group where, say, for example, you're involving, say, like Mountain, there's a couple of really big code academies here, right? So that they would actually want to be involved in part of the reentry process because they potentially could get students and job placement for those same things. They would also be willing to potentially then help offset the cost of technology or stuff, because for them it'd be like a way to be involved as part of that process. Same thing for Silicon Slopes, Rasa Legal, who I mentioned before. There's a lot of for-profit entities that, one, would be willing to donate, but two, would be especially willing to donate if it would help facilitate their business in the long term.
And I also wanted to add, as you're making the list, all the things you're gonna make on that list, maybe the group could identify, is this something that would come to corrections, or would it come to the institution? Is it best belonging to the institution or belonging to our corrections for that? And then we can maybe have conversations, this could help us with, does that a good thing for the institution about budget requests, or we do a USHE one? Or...
So do you have a separate working group or to get together before June meeting to look at the costs and sources and how we can be prepared for the June meeting?
I'd be happy to send an email out to the same group and ask them for what their cost estimates would be for different technology.
And the source that they would recommend?
The source they would recommend.
Yeah, that would be great. I think when you have that, send us the results so we have time to look at it and respond. And if there's some that want to have a deeper dive into some good discussions, then just put together a Zoom meeting for those specifics. So we again, I want to make sure that we're ready for June instead of talking about it in June. So just because it's called the governor's budget and priorities of UDC of how we're going to accomplish these things, so.
If you could add that.
I will. Why just give me a second.
If any of you even want to help volunteer, just work with Chris.
I was gonna say, this is a large undertaking by Chris. And it connects with the fact that he has really been spearheading just even setting up the laptops and getting these 200 laptops in, and it's a massive undertaking on top of everything else. So yeah, the more that we can jump in and help and not put all of you to determine, the better.
I think a lot of this homework can be done by each of the institutions and corrections. So it just goes to you, and hopefully your role will just be what are some things you need to collaborate on this.
Those campus licenses, that's not a cost though, right? That's just access. Like we already have campus instances for adult education.
It depends on, yeah, it would depend on whether UDC would like to whitelist Canvas as a website for students, which isn't I mean, theoretically, it's possible.
It's being done right now for Davis
So-
University.
It should be an option, I think, and that way that could remove that cost barrier right there.
Your institution can just replicate Canvas that's already used on your campus.
Exactly.
And just designate it as a prison version. It
Mhm.
eliminates the ability for students to talk to one another, for them to reach the internet.
Yeah.
Countless other things. It's there, it exists, it's essentially free.
And that could be done by, I believe all the institutions that requested Canvas already have it.
Better part of 13 years.
Which is another reason to get that technology into every individual's hands. It's Canvas.
So what I'm really hearing this meeting is there's so much work going on in this space. It's really exciting from meeting to meeting to see the progress that this council has been part of to improve the access and completion and how to expand in the right way and offer the right courses for job placement. And so the more that Chris's needs are known and we can be creative of how to manage them, I think you don't know unless you ask. So I think that's really important. Do the two of you want to end with any comments or regarding all of this? Because you're seeing it, you're seeing what's happening from UDC's perspective, right?
I do,
Yeah, I'll start. Coming into having reentry and rehabilitation under our scope is a learning experience for me. But what I see and what I hear is the collaboration has never been better, and we are moving, I think, relatively quickly for an agency our size on some of these really important things. I hear the comments that come in about Ryan, about his open mind to doing things differently and working with our partners. So I'm really encouraged seeing as you the progress that we're making. And ultimately, it's just so refreshing to hear that we're all on the same page. What we're here to do is make the lives of the people we serve better and make our community safer. And we know that education is key to that. Right, thank you.
For me, I think the more we can get all of our stakeholders, that's legislators and everyone to understand that education is rehabilitation. They really aren't separate. Education is just a type of rehabilitation. And if we can help people see that, it's easier for the people who are paying dollars into this. If we say, hey, do you think the state of Utah should pay for rehabilitation? I think everybody would agree, yes. For some reason, though, there's a differentiation of, well, there's education and there's rehabilitation, but they are the same thing. And I think if we can just get everyone to understand that, doors will open, obstacles, barriers will be broken down, and we'll continue to move forward at this rate.
And can I add one thing?
Please.
And that rehabilitation is public safety. So they are the same, two sides of the exact same coin. We are safer when people are getting the services, the education and the treatment they need to re-enter our communities and be our neighbors again.
So to that point, I think that's why it's important for Samantha and Talent Ready Utah to be able to be engaged, to even identify not just the companies that are needing workers, but maybe other certifications or training that might be needed, but also partnerships. Maybe they would sponsor some of this equipment because they're the ones benefiting from having workers that come out. And so that's where I feel like we need to know what, so that we know what to ask and what would be reasonable expectations to plan for the budget for next year. And the outreach to companies to get involved. I think when you talk about the message of education, I would say that's what that's what legislators want to know is how is this penciling in, right? And so giving the follow-up of how they're doing when they re-enter, and what the jobs are and how the education keeps them from coming back in. That's ultimately dollars saved, which is what they always look at, and also safety. So I really appreciate everyone's work. Do we have any comments from any of our group or from the public and from our others that are in attendance?
I have one brief comment based on what Brian said in regards to this council legislation that we worked together to get through. The establishment of residency for those who are incarcerated, it was such a win, not only administratively, but I think it sends ultimately that message that Brian is talking about. And that is that since the institutions will then consider a ward of the state a resident, that ties education, specifically higher education, into the treatment program that's facilitated by the state. That one little move right there. So not only administratively did it accomplish something significantly, but I think it does send that message that we need to continue to send. So thanks, Brian, and thanks to all those who work. That's an exciting.
That was great.
So thank you, Representative Bauer. Specifically, it was, we worked on that, I guess, for a couple of years, and now to see the fruits of that is exciting. So thank you.
It is now in state code. So that's where it boils down to. So, and if you have other suggestions of things that I can do legislatively, other than the financial piece and debt that was discussed today, again, it really connects with what we're doing for education debt, or helping to pay that off. So I'd love to have any other suggestions or input. So with that, our next meeting is June 18th, then September 17th, and October 29th. At 1 o'clock for each of those. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Brian moves that. So all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Good job. Good job.
Okay, I'm not sure.